and welcome back to Blue Flag Bandits, the series that drives F1's worst cars so you don't have to in the very often desperate hunt for points. And it's round 7 of 2014, the Canadian Grand Prix, my personal favourite circuit on the calendar. And we arrive here after a Monaco Grand Prix that actually, compared to the rest of this season so far, wasn't too bad at all. We pulled a qualifying lap out of the bag, which didn't get us out of Q1, but put us 17th. Still behind Kamui, but with penalties for Ricciardo and Verne and Rosberg, who didn't set a lap time in qualifying, we actually started the race 15th, just behind Kobayashi, who started 14th, and we crossed the finish line in P13, a lap down on the nearest car and 2 laps down on the leaders, but 13th nonetheless. And it wasn't too bad a race. We picked up no damage, we didn't make any major mistakes, and we kept it on the road through mixed conditions. All in all, actually, pretty buoyant after Monaco, which is amazing, really. Let's take a look at the standings then, and we'll talk about Canada in just a moment. We sit 19th in the standings still. We didn't obviously score points. Bianchi, Kobayashi and Chilton, the only people behind us, and everyone from 14th down to the back, Verne, Gutierrez, Maldonado, Grosjean, Soutel, and the aforementioned Marussias, myself and Kobayashi. Yet to score points this season, 13 drivers have now scored points after a point score for Daniel Kvyat in the last round. At the top of things, though, Lewis Hamilton moved 35 points clear with Nico Rosberg well outside the points, actually finishing behind us by the end of the race in Monaco. He's 40 points clear of Sebastian Vettel, who finished second, which means he leapfrogged his teammate, who finished directly behind us in Monaco. Alonso also moved close to the other Red Bulls, so it's a nice fight for third at the moment. I don't think any of those guys are getting close to the Mercedes by the end of the season. Hülkenberg took a podium, I think, for the second time in this series. But the long-running meme, obviously, of Nico Hülkenberg not getting a podium in Formula 1 was ended in 2025's British Grand Prix. In our series, he's done it twice, and once in, I think, both in Force India colours, actually. I think Force India, maybe 2012, and Force India again in Monaco 2014. Kimi Räikkönen is 7th, level on points with the 2 McLarens of Button and Magnussen. They're just 2 clear of Perez, who's 3 clear of Bottas, and then it's Kvyat and Massa, the last of the point scorers. In the Constructors, Mercedes are running away with it. They're 116 points clear of Red Bull, who are also comfortably clear of Ferrari, who are fairly comfortably clear of Force India, and then the fight starts there. 4 points clear of McLaren, who are 5th, Williams at 6th, and then Toro Rosso picked up their first points of the season to move into 7th. Sauber, Lotus, ourselves, Caterham and Marussia yet to score points. And if you'd said to me before this race, are you going to score points this season, I would have said, no, absolutely not. What are you talking about? While all 22 cars finished in Monaco, it felt good. Like, we felt competent. I was doing my first few quali laps in Monaco and I was 2 seconds down in the middle sector thinking, you know what, it's going to be another one of those races. It's going to be another one of those qualifying sessions. We're going to be way off the pace and we're just going to go nowhere. And then I pulled a lap out and we were, I think, 4-5 tenths off Kobayashi in the end. Canada is my favourite circuit and it hasn't really delivered us great results since 2010. We took pole position in 2010, followed by a 2nd place, and then it's 3 19th places on the bounce in qualifying, whereas the races have been 19th, 17th. We took 12th last year in the Marussia, not far off the points, and it was kind of the start of a little bit of a turnaround in form last season. Maybe that's come around earlier this time around, thanks to that Monaco result. It will obviously warp our quali expectations and our race expectations, or at least the in-game expectations, but it is also possibly due to rain all weekend, which could really spice things up. It is still technically a street circuit, so we should probably get to practicing and seeing what it's going to be like in possibly wet conditions. While we do, we'll talk about the real world. 2014 Canadian Grand Prix. Circuit Gilles Villeneuve played host to race 7 of the 2014 season, and the talk in the build-up was around the Mercedes pairing after Rosberg's controversial Monaco pole. The drivers spoke before the Canadian weekend, with Hamilton stating that there was a lot at stake, but the incident hadn't affected their friendship. Practice 1 saw a few drivers suffering technical gremlins, Raikkonen complaining of a knocking engine, while Verne also suffered technical issues. Monaco hero Bianchi would find himself making contact with the barrier at turn 4, damaging his rear suspension, but the rest of the session passed without major incident, Alonso leading Hamilton and Rosberg. The small hope of a challenge to Mercedes was however quickly extinguished. In the second practice session, the two silver cars taking their now usual spots at the top of the times, Hamilton leading Rosberg, with Vettel coming closest to the dominant machines. The final practice session was briefly interrupted after Gutierrez hit the wall at turn 4 in a similar incident to Bianchi's, damaging the left corner of his Sauber. The red flag period, coupled with a number of minor offs, meant the Mercedes drivers were unable to get consistent, clear running, but that didn't stop Lewis Hamilton leading the times ahead of the Mercedes-powered Williams of Massa, with Rosberg sliding into third. Only 19 drivers would take to the track at the start of qualifying, Sauber unable to repair Gutierrez's car in time. The low-grip nature of the circuit caught a number of drivers out. Hamilton cut turn 1 after locking up, and Perez span, though only Marcus Ericsson would hit a wall in the final few seconds, bringing Q1 to a premature end. He'd be joined in the drop zone by Kobayashi, Chilton, Bianchi and Maldonado, the Lotus driver being told to stop with an issue. Despite the Mercedes power advantage, both Force Indias and the McLaren of Kevin Magnussen found their qualifying ending in the second session, with just a tenth of a second covering 8th place Button to his teammate down in 12th, while Grosjean, Kvyat and Sutil were also eliminated. Would, however, be another front row lockout for Mercedes. Hamilton and Rosberg trading fastest sector times, Rosberg eventually coming out on top ahead of his teammate. Vettel would manage to jump ahead of the rapid Williams pair of Bottas and Massa, while Ricciardo could only manage 6th, ahead of Alonso, Verne, Button and Raikkonen. As the lights went out, Hamilton got the better start from second, but Rosberg managed to block out his teammate, forcing the Brit off track and allowing Vettel to move into second place. The race would, however, be immediately neutralised by a safety car, after Chilton collected Bianchi further back, both cars out the race. It would take 7 laps for the debris to be cleared, with both Vettel and Hamilton pointing out further issues to race control while cruising around, so much so that Hamilton was seemingly not ready for the restart, allowing the Red Bulls some breathing space. That was, however, short-lived, as Hamilton breezed past the German when DRS was enabled, to retake second place and go hunting after the other Mercedes. There was a feeling the pressure was getting to him when he nearly put his car into the turn 4 barrier after his pit stop, but his quick reaction saved him. Rosberg would then find himself in hot water on lap 25, cutting the final chicane after braking too late, while Hamilton appeared to have the overspeed to pass. Rosberg was warned that he wouldn't get away with it twice, but was spared any penalties. Mercedes pair continued to remain close together until their pace began to drop, both cars being struck with a control electronics fault, which left them without MGU-K recharge, having the knock-on effect that their brakes began to overheat. Both would make it to their second stop managing the issue, Hamilton even briefly taking the lead before having to retire the car. The issues elevated Massa to the lead of the race, Williams eyeing their first win since Maldonado's surprise 2012 victory. Massa was, however, struggling with tyre wear issues and had to dive into the pits, giving Rosberg back the lead. But the issues with the Mercedes meant he was being tailed by a group of possible winners, the one stopping Sergio Perez, Daniel Ricciardo and Sebastian Vettel, all in close proximity. Massa would find himself behind Bottas, begging to be let through in a reversal of Malaysia. Bottas wouldn't comply, but attempted a bold move on Hulkenberg, forcing the German wide, and gifting Massa 2 spots, the Brazilian chasing down the lead quartet with much fresher tyres. Rosberg had begun to drive a range issues, holding off the chasing Perez, who himself was managing wearing tyres and electrical issues, with Daniel Ricciardo desperately looking for a way through. The Honey Badger would make a brave move around the outside of turn 1, sticking 2 wheels in the grass in doing so. But he'd get through. He'd now begin the chase for the lead, with just a handful of laps to go. With just a couple of laps left, Ricciardo would slipstream past Rosberg, taking the lead from the dogged Mercedes, while behind Vettel edged his way past Perez on the penultimate lap. The action wouldn't end there though, as Massa and Perez collided at the start of the final lap, Perez seemingly moving left under braking and catching the Williams unawares, sending both heavily into the tyre barrier. Ricciardo would take his first win in F1 and ended the Mercedes dominance of 2014, though Rosberg would hang on to second ahead of Sebastian Vettel. Button would take fourth after the last lap crash ahead of him, with Hülkenberg, Alonso, Bottas, Verne, Magnussen and Raikkonen taking home the points.
We've been pushed down to second place.
It's that time of the season again where I get to drive my favourite circuit. And this time, we're coming in off the back of a surprisingly strong Monaco. Can Canada follow the upwards trajectory? I'm confident we can repeat our heroics from last time out here. There's something about just lobbing a car through this place that gets results. But I'm not going to go quite so far as thinking that we're going to make it into Q2. Although I think we can at least push it maybe a little bit closer. I think we aim for P17 and give ourselves another strong position to work with. And there's always the outside possibility that we can maybe sneak an even better result.
You're losing a lot of time in the final 2 sectors. It's not going to be easy getting into the next qualifying session, but we know you'll give it your all.
Sat in the garage then before qualifying here in Canada. Practice was a very wet affair, but we actually ended it in 5th place. Had decent pace in the wet for some reason, and it's intermediate conditions at least for some of Q1. So probably best we get out there while the going is slightly damp and see if we can carry our practice pace into qualifying. Take a look at our fastest lap of the session, leaving it late as the conditions got better as the session went on. Nice late through the opening chicane at turn 1 and 2, but you can still hear traction is a little bit tricky. As we head into 3 and 4, you can really take liberties with the curbs and the cuts there, at least in these earlier games, so we can fling through turn 5. We're almost half a second up and 3 tenths up on Maldonado. This is already looking like it could be quite the good lap. Out of that little chicane where Sebastian Vettel's 2011 race unfolded, as we head into the second half of the lap, once again just taking some liberties with some corners, not worrying too much, just pushing as hard as we can, feeling like this could be a decent lap. Once again heading down into the hairpin, just shy of half a second up, but actually half a second off Maldonado. This is now just a power fight all the way down here, and as we're behind Maldonado already, beginning to feel probably Q2 is out of reach, but at least we're going to have a decent run as we head towards the final chicane. Another area of this circuit where you can take huge liberties as we run out of fuel and just throw it over the curbs. Stay as far to the right as possible for the line of least resistance. We cross the line.
As expected, 18th on the grid tomorrow. Nice driving.
Another qualifying session to be fairly proud of, actually. 18th place, we out-qualified Kobayashi for the first time this season. We also out-qualified Sutil, Chilton and Bianchi, all on merit. It's not a case of somebody crashing out and others having penalties. Out with Gutierrez, we are about half a second off Maldonado, which we might have been able to find if it had dried up right at the death and we'd got the times and the tyres right, but did everything we could, took some pretty ballsy lines through a few corners in an attempt to shave as much time off as possible, with a 23.2 right at the end of the session there. Not bad going at all. Maybe Monaco has been the kickstart to this season, though the race I think is going to be a different affair, especially if it's full wet. Let's cross to the race and see what it holds. Sat in the garage looking at a very wet circuit Gilles Villeneuve. It's going to be a 100% wet race. This is going to be quite interesting to see. 18th on the grid though. First time we've out-qualified Kobayashi. First time we've out-qualified... Well, second time in a row we've out-qualified people on pure pace. Although Monaco was aided by a couple of other incidents that moved us a few places up, but that's a... Not only does it break the kind of run of 19th spots in qualifying we'd pinched here, but also breaks a run of 6 rounds this season where we've been beaten by Kamui. So it's a good, solid result for us. But let's take a look at the grid, and then we'll go and talk about what we're hoping for in the race. Lewis Hamilton took yet another pole position ahead of Fernando Alonso. Rosberg could only manage 3rd ahead of Vettel. Ricardo Hulkenberg up in 6th. Button 7th, and it's Bottas, Raikkonen and Massa. Magnussen just misses out on the top 10 with Perez, Kvyat, Verne, Maldonado, Grosjean and Gutierrez was knocked out in Q1. With us, Kobayashi, Sutil, Chilton and Bianchi. Listen, I really, really like this place. This is genuinely my favourite Formula 1 circuit to drive. And in the practice session, in these conditions, we were 5th fastest. Still 2.2 seconds off some of the absolute best, but 5th fastest nonetheless. I don't think it's going to be that in the race, but we did see in Monaco we could keep a decent pace in wet conditions. More opportunity here to overtake, but we're not going to have anyone attempting a DRS dive bomb down into turn 1 or into the final chicane. I think we aim not much further up than we are on the grid. I think that's the sensible thing to do. I would love to get back in the points for the first time since Singapore last season, and in Canada for the first time since 2010, but I don't think that's going to happen. I was hoping for carnage in Monaco in these conditions, and everybody finished. If we get everybody finish here as well, that's going to be even more difficult for us. I'm going to aim for a 16th place. Let's say 16th. Grab a couple of spots. It would match our second best result of the season, and maybe, just maybe, during the opening lap in these conditions, where I can maybe throw the car on mate a little bit more, we might gain some places that we can hold on to. But enough talk, to the grid for the 2014 Canadian Grand Prix. Hamilton, Alonso front row. You can see Rosberg just in behind. There we are. You can see Kobayashi next to us, and a few cars behind us for the second race in a row. Getting off the line is going to be tricky here, I think. So we've got to be careful. No kind of chat from engineer Andy as the 5th red light goes on and goes off. Let's try and balance it a little bit just so we don't get too much wheel spin in the wet. We're losing places to Kobayashi and Sutil, but we'll dive back up the inside, brake it heavily into turn 1, find ourselves a little gap in the middle, which seems to be working out quite nicely for us. We're up to 13th at the moment, alongside Sergio Perez, who we bump a little as he holds himself up behind everybody else, and we're now between Massa and Raikkonen.
Okay, the race start is confirmed as wet, so we don't have to
Massa,
use those
can
dry
we?
compounds.
Are we gonna? We are. We're into the points in the middle of lap 1. We are P10. Wheel spin is horrific, but Raikkonen is now behind us. Rear slipping all over the place, just trying to hold on at the moment. Raikkonen going to try and go to the inside at the hairpin. Sweep around the Ferrari and stay in front of him for now. Having to try and manually shift up the gears just to try and stop the wheel spin, but we're P10 at the moment as we head down to the start-finish line. Raikkonen so much faster than us, we'll hold him to the outside. There is a little bit of contact. And we can bounce over the curbs and get away from the fin. And we'll end the first lap in P10.
It seems everyone's complaining about the track conditions. Keep your focus.
We've already lost the top 9 as Sergio Perez tries to go on the attack around the outside again into the chicane. He's not going to get through there. Holding off much faster cars at the moment. It's going to be a long race in this position. I think there's no change in weather condition expected either, as everybody's going to be coming in one by one rather than all at once. We're down to 21 in this race now. Somebody behind us has gone. Raikkonen immediately having a look as soon as he's got past Verne. It is a retirement behind us. Unfortunately for us, it's Adrian Sutil. I'll have a little look at the lap times as well, just because I was interested. We are actually lapping faster than Kobayashi. We did in Monaco, and I think we did way back at the start of the season, but haven't really done since. Maybe we're going to start making a comeback in this teammate challenge, because he's been comprehensively out-qualifying us every race and out-pacing us during the race. The difference is for the most part we've finished ahead of him. We're going to look into the inside. We'll hold him off. He's going to try and go around the outside into the chicane. It's not really a move you can make. I have to bounce across the curb in a little bit, because I can't get across to the left to really swing the car in. Raikkonen might be able to outpace me this time. He's through briefly. There's a bit of contact. I thought it was on the inside of him, but instead of nudged him kind of out of the way. We're on P10 for now. We're on lean mix as well, because fuel is at a premium. A group of cars way down at the back on their own. Possibly the two Marussias. And we'll probably feel quite aggrieved. So once again, goes around the outside and we'll once again attempt to outbrake him. Oh, a bit tight. Maybe not quite enough space there, but we hold our position. And Verne moves into 11th. Robust moves on Raikkonen there. It's a scruffy lap, I think. Verne's turn to look to the outside, and once again he'll go through. Maldonado's up here as well. Weird clutch of cars behind me. The train is getting a bit longer than it was. And Jean-Eric Verne, he's inside this time. Again, we'll just outbrake him, much like we've been doing with everybody else so far. There's Maldonado through.
Around 15 minutes until we see an improvement in the weather. Another 15 minutes.
Okay, we might be seeing a move to more intermediate conditions then. In about 15 minutes time. It's... I don't know, that'll be nearish the end of the race, so they might require a change of tyres. Maldonado just bullies his way up the inside. switch back on the inside of him, which also holds out Vern. Keep P10 for now. Increasingly more difficult to keep P10. I really don't believe we're fighting for a point, but we're here for now, so we're giving everything we've got to stay there. I think there are a couple of cars behind where both cars in the team are behind us. Massa's there. Raikkonen's there. I think both Grosjean and Maldonado are there. So we might lose a few spots. That's whether we'll get them back or not, but let's go. They want us in. Maldonado, I think, stays out. Raikkonen's in. Looks like Massa's in. Perez is in. Kobayashi obviously stays out. Kvyat staying out.
Exit now.
So we'll slip down to 13th. That's not too bad.
Remember to stay inside the white line or we'll get a penalty.
Whether we can get back in front of Kvyat, Kobayashi, and who was the other one? Maldonado. Maldonado's in, Kobayashi's in, and Daniel Kvyat in as well. Here comes Kimi Raikkonen on the attack. Jump the curb a little bit to avoid contact with the Ferrari. We should jump back up into P10. We do.
We think the rain's going to ease up a bit in around 5 minutes.
Well, Perez in my mirror, I thought he was going to go for a move. He's actually backing off because I think, yeah,
Okay,
Lewis Hamilton is right there.
Behind.
Follow me down to the hairpin and get me on the back straight, so I don't have to back off too much or do that. But we run wide in the hairpin to try and let him through. He should realistically have enough to fly past us up here. Does. Follow his slipstream for a moment.
Be aware, we think the car behind is trying to save fuel.
Out with the spray a little bit. And we're off. And we lose 11th, we lose 12th, we lose 13th. And we'll lose 14th as well. And we'll slip to 14th, we'll stay ahead of Vern. And we'll roam the outside of Romain Grosjean. Now all about if we can catch those three back up. I've cost myself a point by running deep, trying to get out of the spray from Lewis Hamilton. Well, the other leaders coming shortly, I hope.
Is the gap to you in the next car. 3 seconds.
Behind me now, a Mercedes. That'll be Nico Rosberg.
You need
Yellow
to let the car
flag,
behind you
eh?
past. He's not racing you for position.
Come on, Nico. Realistically, they're now too far in front of us. It's not the first time this season being lapped by Lewis Hamilton's cost us. We lost a spot to Grosjean in China, it was, when we got held up by Hamilton braking in front of us.
Blue flag conditions. Let the car immediately behind through. You're not racing him.
Alonso, one of the Red Bulls as well. Daniel Ricciardo, we back off a little bit just to let him through, but still there though. We have to take some grass, and Rosberg is drifting around in front of us. Grosjean to the outside. We'll try and outbrake him. It will run wide.
Let's try to be a bit more careful with our
box him out a little bit.
We don't want to be given a penalty.
Massa now the man in front of us. He's lost out through being lapped. Tierra's 21st and last. We'll go running outside of the Mexican. They'll then briefly hold up Grosjean. Grosjean was also being lapped. Yes, he was. Because of McLaren it is. It's Jenson Button. Often let Jenson through. There's a car. A lead car immediately behind us. That of Sebastian Vettel.
He's only 2 seconds down on you. He might try and overtake if you make a mistake.
Should easily be able to outdrag us. We're moving across the racing line to let the German go. Almost a little bit of contact.
You need to let the car behind you past. He's not racing you for position.
Go Hulkenberg once again having a pretty decent day, and I'd assume that's Valtteri Bottas in the Williams. Seeing as Massa's the man in 12th. Closing in on the end of this race as we brake heavily into the chicane and take a bit of a airborne line through it just to avoid the Williams of Bottas. Those three could just trip over each other, that would be fantastic, but I don't feel it's going to happen. Silence have been fairly minimal all season, and obviously we didn't get one in Monaco, amazingly. Magnussen's now the next man to come to us. Off a little bit to let the McLaren through. So the points again, we know 10th, 11th and 12th probably aren't going to be lapping us. They're far enough in front of us, far enough behind us, but just far enough in front of us. Perez, Raikkonen, Massa, or it's going to be Raikkonen, Perez, Massa, but either way Massa's the last of them. Straight fight with Grosjean behind us now. On then to the final lap of this one. Full wet race, even though now we're getting into intermediate conditions. We've probably cost ourselves a point, I think, with a silly mistake when being lapped by Hamilton. Defend fairly comfortably as Hamilton takes the victory and will, with that, extend his championship lead just a little bit further. But we could definitely defend, albeit sometimes a little robustly, from the clutch of cars that were fighting with us, but we had to just get out the spray, missed our braking point in doing so, and made a mistake that cost us 3 spots. I think P10 could have been on here. Granted, we're on to match our best result of the season, which came in the last round in Monaco. We've had 2 qualifying sessions where we've not been last. So there are definitely positives to take out of these 2 rounds. Our pace in wet conditions also not too bad. P13 in Canada feels actually like a disappointment, but a good result nonetheless for Caterham. Lewis Hamilton wins by a comfortable margin over Nico Rosberg. Fernando Alonso finishes the podium with Ricciardo in 4th, Buttons in 5th. Vettel marked as -1 laps. Don't know whether he retired right at the death, but he's 6th. Ahead of Hulkenberg, Bottas, Magnussen, and Perez takes that final point. Only the top 9 finished the full distance. Raikkonen 11th, Massa 12th. We finished 13th ahead of Verne, Kvyat, Grosjean, Maldonado, Kobayashi down in 18th spot and manages to outpace us right at the death as well. That's frustrating. And then it's Bianchi, Chilton, and Gutierrez finished 3 laps down. Sutil didn't manage to make it to the end. We even lapped Gutierrez. So, something good for us, I guess. And how far behind Kobayashi were we? 600ths of a second. That's even more frustrating. We could have at least pulled that back a little bit in the teammate challenge. What does that do for the standings? Dan Hamilton now leads by 42 points ahead of Nico Rosberg. Alonso a further 47 back, as is Daniel Ricciardo. They're level on points. Just 3 clear of Sebastian Vettel, who's on a nice number of points there. Hulkenberg remains 6th, 2 clear of Button, who is 8 clear of Magnussen, who is 2 clear of Raikkonen, who is 1 clear of Perez and Bottas. Kvyat and Massa remain locked on points, which means still only 13 drivers have scored. Verne, Gutierrez, Maldonado, Grosjean and Sutil with 8 points ahead of us, and Kobayashi now joins us. So both Caterhams ahead of both Mauritius, Chilton and Bianchi. Well, Bianchi 21st, Chilton 22nd. In the Constructors, Mercedes 139 clear of Red Bull, Ferrari 178 off the lead, and 30 clear of McLaren, who are a point ahead of Force India. Williams remain 6th with 35 points, while Toro Rosso, the last of the point scoring teams, with 6. Sauber and Lotus are ahead of us, and I think Sauber and Lotus have switched round there. Caterham, us, are in 10th, and Marussia sit bottom of the pile. And yeah, as I say, I think we can be pleased at the fact that that was another 13th place. Pleased the fact that we seemingly had all right pace compared to the cars immediately around us. But I think can be disappointed in the fact that I think we could have actually come out of that race with a point. One silly little mistake. Trying to get out of the blinding spray of Lewis Hamilton as he lapped us. Saw us off the road, lose ground, drop 4 spots, but managed to swing around the outside of Grosjean into the first chicane. But we were never then going to catch Perez, Ricciardo and Raikkonen. Not Ricciardo, Perez, Massa and Raikkonen. And it cost us. It cost us what could have been our first point of the season, and I'd like to think it'd be less than... well, not just our first point of the year, but things seem to have picked up since Monaco. Monaco seems to have been a bit of a catalyst to fairly decent qualifying sessions and 2 13th place finishes in a row, which is great for us. Hopefully we can continue that form on as we return to Europe, and I think we return to Austria next. Might be wrong. But wherever we are, hopefully you enjoyed that one, and you'll join me for the next one. Like, share, comment, subscribe, do all the good stuff. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.